Hope your day or night is going well. Trying out my microphone to see if the sound is better than other videos. We shall see. I wanted to talk about a topic, which I know I've mentioned before, and I know that I think every person has a certain amount of this within them, inside, that they already know, but at times it can be obfuscated. I think that's the right word. Blurred, to where we don't see it as well because of distractions, blockage, if you will, mental blockages, and things that just get in the way of seeing this idea clearly. And not seeing it so much, literally focusing, very intensely on the word, but just the feeling / the vibration of a given concept and how it can be explored. The word is self-acceptance. I think there's a lot to self-acceptance which we might do well. We might accept, where we live, our current state in life to some degree. If we go to do some chores in our house, that's a way of being self-accepting by going to do what we need to do for ourselves and others. And there might be some things in your life which you have self-accepted, which are solved, and they're not problems for you. And what's great about this ability is you can start to see it in other topics when you open up, if you will. I think some people are afraid to open up because they aren't ready to potentially face pain or suffering or past traumatic experiences that might still live in their subconscious. And so this kind of pursuit intimidates them a little bit. Especially if you know something is lurking just beneath the surface, bubbling, if you will, like a volcano that has been dormant but might be ready to explode at some point. Self-acceptance can be hard because we have many factors which affect it. I think our biggest critic is ourselves. And what is healthy self-acceptance versus what is unhealthy self-acceptance? If you accept yourself the way you are to a certain degree, that could be a good thing because you realize who you are as a person, what your limitations might be, what your successes might be, or your passions which help you and others flourish, kind of thing. But self-acceptance can also be in the realm of self-denial. For example, someone who knows that if they don't change their lifestyle, they may meet a premature death. For example, with nutrition and the susceptibility of disease. And that's not a judgment on the self in a bad way, because if you shame yourself in that way, how many of us actually change with shame? I think some argue that shame is the way to really make people change because it tries to frighten them into doing better. But I think a different approach can have just as good effects by slowing down and calming the mind to start with, so that you can take routines that you do and change them one action at a time so they seem tangible, and then make long-term goals to try to make those routines habits that then make larger overall changes. So with the self, us being our own biggest critic, we have that to contend with. And where that identity, or what is an identity, came from. You know, like, where does I just forgot the word. Self-acceptance. Sorry, should have wrote it down. Where does self-acceptance come from? You know, how do I feel accepted? How do I allow myself to feel accepted my entirety? How did that form? Why? What different events and influences in life created that sense of being, of understanding, of being at this point on the human experience spectrum, where this is what my self-acceptance looks like, which can be different than even my neighbors or my partners or some of my best friends or any other persons. You could have 8 billion different ideas of self-acceptance, probably with some similarities. I think the other one, though, that we have to acknowledge, not that we are controlled by it, but that it is a reality that we contend with, are the outside influences which affect our feeling of self-acceptance. I think the most influential to start, because we are reared by our parents or adults within our family, or some kind of adults in general. Although I guess you could also be raised by a young sibling because your parents or guardians, for whatever reason, couldn't do so. But the influence of outside sources and how they can, in a positive or in a negative way, influence our interpretations, not just feelings, but interpretations of self-acceptance. Have you ever had or seen an older woman in a family who had no qualms about saying to their daughter or granddaughter, "Hey, you shouldn't eat that. You're getting fat"? Have you ever experienced or seen an older man who says to a younger man, boy, whatever the situation might be, well, you got to be mentally tough. You can't show your emotions. Is that self-acceptance? Or are those habits passed down from generation to generation, believing certain ideas to be reality, real, applicable, and the tradition, culture, custom, or belief system that one should follow to be their best self? I guess my question would be, do the outside sources always or largely aim to help grow the best individual possible in the young person? Are the outside influences helping foster a mindset, a body, etc., where the young person can and will flourish? I think that outside sources do have their place, whether it's fashion trends, opinions from family or friends, in different aspects of our society. Restaurants who would try to sell you food, brands that you buy, certain traditions that you have. You could go on and on about it. I do wonder, though, at times, what parts of our human interactions really don't help our belief of self-acceptance. How many adults have we had in our life who, through pain, suffering, their own experience, and then transferring it to the next person, how many of them believed and acted in certain ways that were not great for our own self-acceptance? And we can say that without getting angry with said adult if you can step back and look at humanity almost as if you're in the sky and you're looking down at Earth, to understand that every human has had influences in their life that have shaped them to become what they are in the present moment. And even though it is not just for an older person to transfer suffering, negative energy, outbursts, and anything else that would really could harm another person, especially their own child, even though we know that occurs, does that make it right? Does that person actually have a space for healing to a better, transcendent version of self-acceptance? Sometimes the mindset is, I get to a certain age and I'm not going to change. I am the way I am. It's a bit arrogant, isn't it? And then you have the sources in society which make judgments on us. And let's just be very straightforward. Sometimes the profit does not coincide with stable mental health in society. This whole thing of endless consumerism that we see, or the idea that the product that is being sold to you, whether it's by the politician or the business person or whomever else is selling something, it's to say and to make you feel that you are insufficient without that thing and you need that thing to feel full. And yet, how often do we get stuck in these cycles with, for example, endless shopping? Like the next thing we buy is going to make us happy on a near infinite or permanent basis. And then we attach the buying to self-acceptance. We attach the feelings of a damaged adult human who may refuse outright to go down and do that deep work they need to do so that their radical transformation can help you be your best self. Think about that. How many adults in the world either refuse or are content being ignorant to go get some kind of help Not saying you always need professional therapy, because that's not always the case, right? But where they say, oh, I just raised my kid that way just because that's how I was raised. With anger. Anger was a language in our household. The self-acceptance, to a large degree, from my perspective, whoever this my is, appears to come from inside. And if you really want self-acceptance that is sustainable, a strong foundation can make you feel like you're holding a cup, and your cup will always overrunneth from the well or the stream or the spring. Does not the self-acceptance have to begin within? Before ideologies, before political affiliations, before accepting an aggressive way of interacting with others being the norm that you have to buy into for some reason. Or again, with the materialism from the outside source that would have you spend every last one of your pieces of currency on said materials. Let the self-acceptance grow within, not by identification with the idea, but just in that state where you just breathe through hard things. You just slow down and be here in the now, the only time we have. The past is gone. I should learn from it, but not dwell there. The future is ahead. I should plan for it, but not stress so much that I'm forcing myself into a self-predicated paralysis. Self-acceptance starts with me, and stripping away those things which may have once held me back because I was unaware of them, but no longer. No longer. We are here. We are the thinker of our thoughts. Find out what self-acceptance means to you. Be well. Always.